What's up, Giants fans, Hub watchers, YouTube subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers? It's Kush back at it again with another New York Giants video, and for the first time in a while, not an update video. As you guys know, I've been pretty busy with school and whatnot. It's actually midterm week for me. I'm like gonna be taking a whole bunch of midterms this week. That's besides the point though. After this Giants win against Carolina, where our defense finally woke up from its long slumber, where our pass rush, the thing that's really been missing on it, showed up seemingly out of nowhere, I really needed and wanted to make a video about this Giants pass rush to get all my thoughts out there about how I think we can improve, to get my thoughts out there about how I thought players have been performing, and really put everything in a video format because I know not everybody has a chance to catch the streams. So speaking of the pass rush, of course we beat Carolina 25-3 this past Sunday at home, with a pass rush led by the two people who were supposed to be leading it from the beginning of the year. Leonard Williams with 1.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits, and the rookie second round dog out of Georgia, Azeez Ojulari, with 2.5 sacks and 4 quarterback hits, coming in, showing up, and wreaking havoc upon Sam Darnold and that Carolina offensive line. We also got to see a little bit of another rookie in Quincy Roche, who's been getting a little here and there more snap counts as the week goes on. And honestly, from what I saw in Carolina, in my personal opinion, I think this dude should be starting across from Azeez Ojulari, and we'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. Before I talk about the two rookies though, let me first talk about Leonard Williams, a guy who, funnily enough, the week before we played Carolina, I was talking about him on stream, saying that people are really misinterpreting how Leonard Williams is performing in 2021, because his performance is very similar to what he did in 2020, even before the Carolina game. Now, of course, we have to include the Carolina game because it happened, but as of right now, 7 weeks into the season, his stats total at 4.5 sacks, 39 total tackles, 14 solo, 3 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback hits. Now, of course, where is it low? The tackles for loss and quarterback hits. You compare that to the 16-game season of 2020 where he had 11.5 sacks, 57 total tackles, 29 solo, 14 tackles for loss, and 30 quarterback hits. Once again, the major discrepancy here between the 2 years would be the tackles for loss and quarterback hits. And before the Carolina game, I guess you could say the sacks. However, just looking at these numbers before doing some very simple calculations, you could see that Leonard Williams is very much on pace to have a similar season to 2020. And in terms of tackles, at least, he looks to be on pace to surpass that. So you take his 4.5 sacks and divide it by 7 for the 7 games he's played, you get a really funky decimal around 0.642 that goes on forever for what he's averaging per game. And then you just take that and you expand it over 17, and you find that Leonard Williams is actually on pace for about 10.92, or let's round up because sacks only comes in halves and wholes. He's on pace for about 10.5 to 11 sacks this year, which if I told you last year when we signed Leonard Williams, would you be on board for that? I'm sure that most, if not all of you, would have been saying yes 1,000 times yes. In fact, there was Giants fans saying they'd be happy with an 8 or 9 sack season from Leonard Williams, because him repeating that 11.5 sack one might have been unrealistic, because that's how good he was. That's how good that 11.5 sack season was, and I think people fail to realize that. As a defensive tackle, it is harder to get sacks from the interior, and that is what Leonard Williams is. And his job has been harder this year because of the fact that everybody on the defense has been underperforming. He had no edge rushing help for the majority of the year up until this week against Carolina. Because of the loss of Dalvin Tomlinson, he had to make up some of those tackles on the inside, which is why you're seeing a major rise in the amount of tackles he's had this year. I mean, let's keep it real. Danny Shelton is not doing the job, and Austin Johnson is a good player, but he's not in there 100% of the time, and he's no Dalvin Tomlinson. So Leo is helping to make up that missing presence in the run game, which he's been very good at this year. Once again, as a defensive tackle, you're doing the dirty work. Nobody recognizes it, and I think that's what's happening right now. Nobody's recognizing that he is still a monster. He is still the big cat up the middle, and that's not even including things like, you know, scheme and what Patrick Graham has him doing. He has him doing a lot more things this year than he did last year, using him on different fronts of the defense. And yet with that, Leo is still on pace to have a better year in tackling and a very similar year in sacks and quarterback hits from last year. I think that is very much living up to the contract, and that is surpassing what he did last year because of the tackles. He is better, and people fail to realize that. In fact, even if you go to 7 weeks into the seasons in 2020, so we look from week 1 Pittsburgh to week 7 at Philadelphia last year, he's way better than he was at that point of season this year. So by week 7 in 2020, Leonard Williams only had 3 sacks and 25 total tackles compared to 4.5 this year and 39 total tackles. That's a better player. That is 100% a better player. And once again, because he's a defensive tackle, it's harder to get these sacks. Your presence is not as felt as if you are a defensive end where you were always a major threat in the pass rushing game. And there's only one defensive tackle in the entire league who is on that level, and that's Aaron Donald. And hey, this is post-editing Kush right here, and I just want to quickly interrupt this to say he's even statistically outperforming Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald only has 3.5 sacks and 29 tackles on the year, and Leonard Williams has 4.5 to 39 tackles on the year. I still do believe that Leo is truly just a level below him. He's in that class with Chris Jones, who, by the way, only has 8 total tackles and 2 sacks on the season. He's on that level of Eric Armstead, who, by the way, only has 14 tackles and 1 sack on the season. Leonard Williams is a top 5 player at his position, guys, and he's beyond performing like that. It's crazy what he's doing, and it's going unrecognized. So what does that bring me to say? Well, part of it is I just want Leo to get the recognition he deserves and get the praise he deserves. He's getting a lot of unnecessary hate from fans right now because they don't realize how good he is and how good he's performing. But also, if you want him to have performances like he did against Carolina, where he's getting a sack and he's getting to the quarterback often as a defensive tackle or a 3-4 defensive end, they're the same thing, guys. You're gonna need help from the edge, and that's what he got, and that's where I start talking about Azeez Ojulari. And I could go on and on about him. In fact, I have a whole video about him that I'm gonna link right now in the top right of the video with the eye, where I was talking about how much I love the pick. I've wanted Azeez since January of this year, how much he fits our scheme, because the Giants defense and the Georgia defense are very similar to each other, and how he was going to be truly the best pass rusher we've drafted in years, coming out of the SEC as the best pass rusher in the SEC. We could finally have a legit homegrown talent to put on the outside, and we saw that on Sunday. We've had flashes of it in the first 6 weeks, but it's no coincidence, I'm telling you guys, it is no coincidence that Azeez Ojulari had by far his best game with 2.5 sacks. He started out his rookie year, with 3 straight sacks in 3 straight games. But it's no coincidence he's had that because he played the most amount of time on Sunday. He played 67% of the defensive snaps, which is his season high. And I still think it should be higher, given that this guy is legitimately better than Lorenzo Carter and O'Shane Ximines. 2 players that the coaching staff seems to want to hold on to a little bit. And I do think he should start above them. He's getting very similar snap counts to them. I think this is a guy in Azeez Ojulari that we should be giving like 80% snaps. Maybe that's too much for him. Maybe the training staff is saying that's too much for him. And I'm be honest, I'm not sure how much I'm trusting this training staff because we always get injured. But at least get him up to like 70-75%. He's still in the 60s, and I think he's proven more than enough that he should be seeing more snaps. And it's clear that with more, he's a threat. He still has a lot to learn. He's still a rookie, and he's very young at that. I think Azeez is only 21 years old. We got a very young player that's still growing physically. He can get bigger. He can get faster. He can get stronger. He could become a way better version of himself 2-3 years from now than he is right now. And that's scary to think about because we're going to have that on our roster. He's already tied the Giants' rookie sack record with 5.5 sacks, and he's on pace to shatter that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the dude is on pace for a 13-sack rookie season. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. Now, once again, he does have a lot to improve upon because he's not what I was describing earlier. As an edge rusher, he hasn't hit that point where he's a constant threat, where he's getting pressure most of the times, where he's getting in the quarterback's face a good amount of times. He's very hit or miss. But I think, once again, that's definitely directly related to the fact that he's only seeing around 60-67% of the snaps. I believe if you give him a chance to, he could consistently be there. And another guy that, even though he got even less, he got only about 23. Let me quickly look. Yeah, about 23 snaps on the defensive side of the ball, which is 36% of the defensive snaps this past Sunday, is the other rookie, Quincy Roche. And while I can't find necessarily anything here that gives me his actual pressure numbers from that game, anybody that watched it realized that you were seeing number 95 off the edge a good amount, and you were seeing him affect the game. I believe that Quincy Roche is a guy we need to start giving more snaps as well. I would go as far as to say start him and Azeez as our 2 starting edge rushers and give them numbers that reflect that. However, I would settle for giving this man, you know, an increase, a bump up from 36 to around 50, maybe even 60% of snaps, because he's doing a better job in that one game than I've seen Oshane Ximines do in about 2 years, that I've seen Lorenzo Carter do this year. So we need to give the guys that are the best players the best chances to perform on the edge, and that of course helps out the beast that Leonard Williams is even more on the inside, which helps out our secondary, which we saw the entire defense ran off of this pass rush because of the fact we were getting to the quarterback. That's it for now, guys. That's what I got for y'all today. Put your thoughts down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'll catch y'all in the next one.